Okay. Welcome back to the fifth episode of the CEO Journey. Today we're joined by a very special guest. He goes by the name Peter Mulryan. Thank you for hopping on the podcast today, Peter. We really appreciate it. You've obviously been through a roller coaster of a journey throughout business, and you've got a really good story to tell. So to the viewers who might not know you, could you just briefly introduce yourself?
My name is Peter Mulryan from Blackwater Distillery, and we're a distillery based in County Waterford on the south coast of Ireland, so southeast, so down near the bottom right hand corner. So next stop is kind of Wales, so that's where we are. We've been there since 2014, and we started making white spirits, so spirits like gin, vodka, and then in 2018 we raised a lot of money on the back of that, and we built a second distillery where we make whiskey, Irish whiskey, and we have several brands out now, and we introduce our most exciting brand called Dirt Grain in about 2 months' time, about November time.
No, that's really interesting, and thank you for that. And it's great to see that you're obviously doing very well now, and you're a multi-award-winning alcohol brand and distillery. So that's.
But I'm not a multi-millionaire.
I love that.
Not yet, Peter.
Not even close, guys. Not even close.
But you're definitely someone who we look up to, and obviously you're very inspirational in the business field. So I love to start these podcasts by entrepreneurs about their journey and where it all came about. So I'd just love to know about where it all started for you, and how did you develop that entrepreneurial flair that you have today?
Good question, because I like to think of myself as an accidental entrepreneur. I didn't set out to be an entrepreneur. I set out to make gin and whiskey and to own a distillery. So to do that, I had to do entrepreneurial things. So it was a kind of like, I want to do this, so therefore I have to be this kind of person. My background is a TV producer, so I worked as a TV producer for over 20 years. And when I started the distillery, I always thought, I know nothing about running a company. I know nothing about running staff. This is going to be quite a stretch. And we had a mentor, and the mentor said, well, what does a TV producer do? And I said, well, we do kind of everything, really. We kind of lead. We have the big ideas. We put the team together. We get the cash. We run the budget. And she went, well, there you go. That's what a CEO does. So the good thing about being in this job is really you can come into it at any point in your life. You can come into it when you're young and you're just burning and you want to create stuff, or you can wait later like I did and have a whole other career and then go, you know what, I really fancy doing something else. And then all the life skills that you've had at that point in time, you can bring to bear on your new project.
And I guess it could just kind of question just from that is just kind of obviously from going from a BBC kind of presenter, that's kind of quite a stable form of income, a really kind of in some ways aspirational job for a lot of people. But I'm just wondering what kind of took you from doing that to go into a very kind of almost risky entrepreneurial venture without kind of that stable source of income.
That's a good question, Joe. And I think maybe that's the difference between a CEO stroke entrepreneur and someone who isn't. In other words, someone who takes risks. You try to take a calculated risk. You try to stack the odds in your favor, but it is a risk. Some people are risk averse, and they just never do this. I have a very good friend, and he's a very, very stable job, and he's been talking for 20 years about doing his house up. And he's so risk averse, he's never done it. He just hasn't done it. And now he's going, I should have done it 10 years ago. I'm like, well, yeah, I mean, why didn't you do it? I thought, well, I don't know. So, you got to take chances. And a lot of businesses don't succeed. And we've been lucky in that so far. We have succeeded. But serial entrepreneurs are the kind of people who just keep going at something again and again and again. And sometimes they hit big first time, and sometimes it takes many, many goes to get it right. But I still think there's that element of risk and that element of maybe it's a self-belief that you have to do this. So I guess that will be in the job spec. Yeah, self-belief and confidence.
Did you receive much guidance whilst making that transition?
Well, I came home from work one day. I was working as a TV producer, series producer, so quite high up on a really good salary, pensionable, the whole shebang. And I came in one day to my wife and said, "You know what, Caroline? I think I should leave and set up a distillery." She went, "Sure, yeah, whatever." So there you go. I mean, you do need support behind you too. My background, just to be totally clear, as well as being a TV producer, I made a lot of food and drink shows for the BBC, going back over 20 years. So I'd worked with most of the top chefs in the UK and Ireland. So I was very much into this whole food and drink culture, and also then worked with a guy called Os Clark, who's a wine writer, who you may have heard of, and basically through that I started writing about spirits about 20 years ago, and then I wrote a book and then another book. So I've written about 6-7 books now on spirits. So I wasn't come to this as a complete ingenue. I knew about the industry from the journalistic perspective rather than being in it. So I come with a slightly different perspective to many people, and I'm an insider who's also an outsider.
And aside from the business aspects, when did your passion for alcohol actually first come about?
Your passion for alcohol? That
sounds quite bad, but
my mother was listening. What's interesting about alcohol is that, when you get to 18, of course, you can have alcohol.
Yeah.
As you get older, I think you get a bit more focused on less units of alcohol and more flavor experiences. And alcohol is interesting because obviously it's a drug, but you can suspend, this is the science bit, you can suspend more flavor in alcohol than you can in water, which is why alcohol-free gins are shit, because they taste of bleh. Whereas with alcohol, you can suspend loads of stuff with alcohol. And that's what it's like to be human, is this need to try and to experiment and maybe sometimes to have slightly out of body and mind experiences. You can do that via red wine or white wine, beer, spirits. And I think more and more people are doing it now for the experience, for the flavors that you can suspend in alcohol, whether that's really good craft beer or just a really cold lager or a really nice whiskey. I was just in Eindhoven in the Netherlands over the weekend at a whiskey festival. It's really interesting because a lot of, we call it New World distilleries. In other words, they're not Scottish or Irish or Japanese or American. They're mostly European. So we had whiskies from Germany, Switzerland, France, Netherlands, Belgium, and they're all driven by this similar thing, which is trying to, I guess, distill the essence of that place into a drink, into a gin or into a whiskey. And it was really, really interesting. So you got people like me making these journeys right across the world.
So would you say that, I guess, heritage is an important aspect when launching an alcohol brand? Because I guess
it depends on the alcohol. With whiskey, whiskey kind of runs on this thing of heritage, particularly Scotch whiskey. And if you look at the marketing campaigns or the branding, there's a very heavy emphasis on either tradition or taking the piss out of tradition. So tradition's in there. If you're selling something like a vodka, tradition's less important. It's more about brand and what your brand says, or what does Grey Goose say about you. That's not about tradition, that's about a lifestyle. Gin, again, not about tradition so much. It's more about cocktails and being at the moment. So all these spirits are all quite different, but particularly, I suppose, in whiskey, there's a lot of lean on tradition,
Okay. So to bring it back a little bit, so you're obviously making that transition. How did you go about raising funding for the project?
Basically, I went to friends and family first. That's the first thing I did. I mean, I'm not an ex-city banker. I don't have loads of contacts, so it was friends and family first, and then I went to in Ireland we have a thing called local enterprise office, and there's a similar thing across most of the UK and Europe, and that's sort of government-funded bodies who help small businesses start up. So they gave me match funding. So in other words, for every euro or pound I got from them, I'd match it with something else. So that allowed me to build my reserves. But I didn't have enough money. That was the first year was tough because we just didn't have enough cash. We couldn't make the alcohol. But one of the things people forget is that making gin is actually the easy bit. The difficult bit is the branding the gin and bringing it to market, promotion, marketing, sales. That stuff's expensive. And the big guys who you're selling against have got millions and millions and millions in their bank account, and you don't. You've got to somehow compete with these. So we didn't have enough money for the first year, and it was very, very tough. The first 2 years, it was hard, yeah.
So what makes you stand out from all those competitors then?
We're just brilliant. We're just fantastic. It's my wit and my charm and my wonderful spirits.
I'm sure you are.
Look, yeah, everyone's got a story, Tom. It says they're the best. I mean, you know, we're good at what we do. Are we the best? We're just very good at what we do, and we make nice spirits because we like drinking them. So they better be good.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I understand that you've managed to get your products into quite a few big retailers, Irish Tesco's, and
we're in Tesco. We just signed up for Marks and Spencer, Aldi. We do a brand for Aldi in Ireland, which is also was an Aldi UK, only Brexit, and now it's an Aldi Australia. And we're looking at other Aldis across Europe. It's called Boyle's Gin. Very good gin. It's won lots of awards. So yeah, I mean, we need to spread our base. So we were very reliant on gin, which was great, but you could feel kind of gin softening around 2 to 3 years ago, which is beginning to peak, and it's now kind of going down. So we had to broaden our base. As I said, we were into whiskey at that stage, so that's helped stabilize everything. But yeah, we're now kind of dependent on whiskey and gin. They'd be the two big sellers.
Okay, and I understand it's like a really difficult task to actually get your product into these retailers.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, yeah.
Especially with saturation. How do you go about pitching?
That's a good question. They have to be ready to talk to you. So, like a very good supermarket we've just signed a deal with. We've been talking to them for years. No interest. And suddenly they've an interest. I don't know why, but they're talking to people. So they're talking to us as well as other people. And when that happens, you got to put your best case forward. A lot of us to do with the price, your branding proposition, the awards you've won. So there's lots of factors. And also we've got a very good commercial manager, and his job is basically to lever into stores and to get those listings both in supermarkets and in bars and retail groups across Ireland and beyond into the UK and across Europe.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. And the reason why I wanted to ask that question is because I know that notoriously alcohol brands have failed because they found it very difficult to actually push their products into those big retailers, and that could be the make or break between having a successful business in the alcohol industry or not. So it's definitely great to get your insight into that.
Yeah, but you have to be careful. You have to be careful too, Tom, because if you do get into a supermarket, we don't have the economies of scale that the have. So we're always going to be at a slight disadvantage or on the back foot. So you need to be nimble in other ways. Either you do an exclusive for that retail outlet, and a multinational won't do that, or you do something that's specifically theirs that you do for them. You try to play to your strengths as opposed to a multinational who basically always play the price card all the time. You need to have many other tricks up your sleeve as a small producer.
Would you say that COVID was the most difficult time for you in business?
Yeah, it was difficult. It wasn't the most difficult because we basically reacted again quite quickly by doing a club. So we would do special boutique cocktail drinks and send them out to customers directly to their door. We did that really, really quickly. So right through COVID, we were pushing out, a couple of thousand of these boxes every. And that kept us in contact with our customers. It got us lots of feedback. It got us great press and coverage. It kept us busy. And that was a big, big success. I'd say probably right now is one of our most difficult times, because if you think about it, we've been making whiskey for 4 years. Whiskey is something that's stupid. It's a stupid concept. Okay, you make something, you stick it in a barrel, and in the barrel it evaporates. You lock it in a dark room for at least 3 years, and you can't sell it. And all the time it's sitting there, tying up your capital, costing you money. You're insuring it, you're protecting it, and it's just sitting there, draining the lifeblood of your cash flow. And there's nothing you can do about it. So that's kind of where we are now. We're coming towards releasing that into the market. So right now, this is probably us at our most stretched. Yeah.
Okay. So would you generally say that being able to pivot and adapt is one of the best things you can do in business? And also, I like the fact that you talked about, releasing this new cocktail drinks that you would send to customers during COVID. And I guess that really forced you to innovate and get in touch with your customers, which is really strong. And I'm guessing that probably really helped your brand as a whole.
It does, yeah, because you got to be consumer centered if you're a drinks brand. If you don't listen to your consumers and your customers, and you're kind of dead.
Yeah, no, 100%. What would you say has been? Sorry, I'll rephrase it. What has been the biggest mistake that you've made throughout your career?
Biggest mistake, I think possibly. That's a tough one now. I made lots of mistakes.
If there's one that you had to pinpoint.
Well, thankfully none of them have been too tragic and too big.
I guess you wouldn't be where you are.
Yeah, I think I don't think I've done anything horrendously terrible. No, I have to say we've made mistakes, but luckily, they weren't very big ones. I think, as I say, back to what I said earlier, if you're risk averse, you're not gonna be a CEO. You're not gonna be an entrepreneur. So that element of kind of rolling dice has to be kind of in your DNA. And I've done this lots of times in the past. I was a freelancer for years. I've left full-time jobs. I've left pensionable jobs in the BBC to go and do something I fancy doing. So I have a track record of reinventing myself and doing different things. Whether any of those have been a mistake, I don't know. We're still here. We're still talking. So hopefully, the biggest gamble is going to be the whiskey brand we release November, December. Now it's really, it's pushing all the envelopes in all the directions. So that could be my biggest mistake.
Yeah, I guess we'll see how it plays off, and hopefully it isn't a mistake, and hopefully it goes really successful. So yeah, we wish you all the best luck with launching that. But I do understand that you have a co-founder, don't you?
Yeah, well, basically, yeah, because when I said I came home and I said to my wife, that's about the distillery. She was a theatre producer. She said, yeah, fine, let's do it. So the two of us founded the company together, and then we brought in 2 other partners, and then we brought in other directors onto the board as we went along. Because as we grew, we realised we needed more experience. So we brought in 2 non-exec directors then, one from the industry, one executive from Pernod Ricard, who's a big drinks company, and one's a finance guy who joined us a year ago. So what you need to know too as a CEO is, what are your blind spots? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And you play to your strengths, and then you try to get people in to fill those gaps in your knowledge who can help support the company. So that's what we're currently doing, is kind of just trying to future-proof ourselves.
Yeah, 100%. Because I guess like what you're saying there is that you're obviously quite a self-aware person, and you understand what your weaknesses are.
I think you have to be. You have to be. Yeah.
No,
and the other thing too is, as a CEO, you got to know when it's time to stand down, when it's time to move aside, because just because you can get a company going and you can grow it to a certain level doesn't mean you can take it to the next level or the next level again. That's actually quite rare to take it from ground zero all the way up. So I haven't got to the stage yet where I feel I need to bail, but there may well come a time. Yeah, absolutely. Because you got to remember, if you're doing this and you're trying to build something, you're trying to build something that's actually bigger than you.
Yes.
Don't have that awareness that it's actually bigger than you. You could well drive it onto the rocks.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because Joe and I, it's really interesting to hear that from you, because Joe and I are building a startup at the moment, and we're at the really early stages. And I think sometimes we have the problem where we let our egos get in the way of the vision for the company, and it's being able to understand and notice what your downfalls are as a person, and being able to then, if Joe's better at something than I am, then being able to say, look, Joe, you do this, and having that self-awareness is just so key. So it's just great to, I guess, learn the importance of that, and actually see you. Do you ever think you'll ever step down from CEO? And do you reckon?
Yeah, I could absolutely see it happening one day. Yeah, once it got to a certain level, I felt I couldn't handle it anymore. Absolutely. Yeah. You got to remember, think of it this way, guys. A company is a legal entity. Okay, just as I'm a legal entity and you are a legal entity. So the company, any company, is in law effectively a person. Okay, so it's not you, it's its own thing. Yeah. And then you are part of the thing, but you're not the thing. And that's important to remember, because as I say, sometimes you may need to just go sideways. You may need to go, you know what, I'm actually going to become head of development, because my real strengths are blue sky thinking, but I'm not really good at running a team of 50 people. I'm grand with 15, but 50 can't handle that, guys. So I'll step aside and let someone come in who can handle all this, and I'll do what I'm really good at, because it makes me really happy, but also it's better for the company.
Peter, one question I just had for you, which I thought would be kind of really helpful for, I guess, me, but also all the kind of entrepreneurial listeners who are just listening, is kind of what would your kind of, I guess, 2 or 3 top tips be for entrepreneurs who are perhaps kind of slightly scared to take that plunge into entrepreneurship?
You got to be comfortable with what you're doing. So if you don't feel comfortable leaving where you are now and making the leap, then don't do it. That's absolutely don't do it. Only do it if you feel, you know what, I think I can pull this off. Because you need that self-confidence, because first 2 years are going to be tough. That's just the way it is. It's just going to be hard. And all you need to do is go on LinkedIn, look at people going, oh God, I'm working an 80-hour day. Yeah. What do you think was going to happen? It's like going for a walk in the rain and complaining because you got wet. Yeah. It's life. Yeah. So I'd say you need to be pretty confident that you can pull it off. That would be the only advice I'd give to anyone. Be true to yourself. Be true to yourself, and you can't go far wrong.
Self-belief is critical, isn't it?
Yeah, follow your heart. Don't listen to your head. Head will just fuck with you. Jesus Christ. Yeah, you can do that. Don't listen to your head. Listen to your heart. If your heart goes, you know what? Yeah, just go for it. You only got one shot at life. Fucking go for it. Then go for it. Absolutely.
How do you cope with the pressure?
Pressure kind of comes and goes in waves. Sometimes it's, like nothing will happen. Everything's calm and gentle. And sometimes it's a series of, it's never one thing. It's always a series of things. So, something will happen that's not great. And then something else is not great. And it'll build and build. And all these not great things will come at basically on top of each other. It's just like the way it works. And then you're down here. It's important that you take time out. I play music. I play the mandolin, which I only started when I set the company up, because I kind of realized you need a space for your head to go. And the good thing about music, I hadn't done it before I started the company, is that you can't do anything else. You can't really think about anything else. You start hitting bum notes. So you got to focus, and it clears your head. You go for walks, you talk, don't bottle it all up inside you. Find someone you can talk to. It could be a partner, it could be a mentor, it could be, just talk to somebody. Don't carry it all around with you in your head or on your shoulders, because you're not that strong, you're not that big. Apart from that, just have fun. And when it stops being fun, then maybe look for something else to do.
Yeah, no, that's great. And obviously you're in quite a public facing role at the moment as CEO. And I'm guessing you have to deal with quite a lot of PR and, getting the brand out there essentially. And I would say that's quite similar to, putting yourself out there on TV and building almost a personal brand around yourself. Would you say that building that personal brand in the TV career has helped you in the CEO position that you're in today?
Yeah, totally. Because the other thing I'd say is it's a role. Okay, we all have lots of roles. Your role can be boyfriend, your role can be son, your role can be father, your role can be, musician, golfer. These different roles are different hats. You put them on, and when you've got the hat on, you're in the role. So CEO is a role. So you stand into, you go onto the podcast, you put the hat on, and you do it. Like when I was in Eindhoven with this whiskey festival, I arrived and they said, "Oh, we didn't tell you, but you're doing a master class in 2 hours." And you're like, well, I'm not prepared for this. So what you do is you put your glad hat on and you go out there and you give it, you perform. So yeah, it's a hat. It's a role you play, and being a CEO is a role because people follow you. When you're the leader, people listen to what you say and follow you, but they have to believe in you, because if they don't believe in you, they won't follow you. So you have to kind of have that confidence that you know what you're doing, and even if you don't, you just have to be confident. Sometimes, I like to say sometimes it's better to make a decision, even if the decision is wrong, but it's better to have made a decision than to, faff and just, you think about this. That's not good. Make a decision. If it goes well, brilliant. If it doesn't go well, suck it up, move on, do something else. Yeah. Sometimes it's important for those other people behind you that are working in the company just to know there's a direction of travel, and you are the captain of the ship, and you know where the ship is going.
Mm-hmm. So it's having that decisiveness and
vision.
Vision,
yeah. It's totally about a vision. It's about a vision. It's two things: the vision and how you're going to get there. And again, it doesn't really matter if you're right about how to get there. It just matters that the direction of travel is pretty much in the right direction. Mm-hmm. Knocked off course, but you just keep steering the ship back online again.
So talking about vision, where do you see Blackwater Distillery in the next 5 or 10 years? Obviously, you've talked about launching this new alcohol brand, but I guess for a longer term view.
Well, look, we're in a funny position now that we can do one of two things. This is what the next year is about. We can either double down what we're doing, but just stay the size we are, and say this is the slot we're in, this is the market we're going for, and that's the plan. Or we go, no, we need to go to the next step, and the next step in our case would be a bigger distillery. You're looking at an investment of 15 million, 20 million.
Wow,
shit ton of money. That's the problem. Yeah. So that's the point we're at now. Now we have the brands, now we have everything in place. How do we play this? Then to do the second thing, which is big, we need money. So where is the money going to come from? Who might the partner be? What is their vision? How's it time with our vision? How's it all going to work? So they're the internal questions we'll be having in the next few months. But we do have to make that decision next year, which is to, as they say, shit or get off the pot, really.
Yeah. So you've obviously got like some big expansion plans for the future.
But you need to have plans. But it doesn't mean we have to do them. I mean, there's plenty of very successful brands who just kind of find a niche and they work that niche really, really well. And there's other brands that, you know, do really well when they scale. So, you know, we're at that point now where we need to work out what we're going to be. And that's going to be more apparent in 2023.
I'm guessing, I mean, I might be wrong in this, but, you know, if you do need to raise more money in the future for it, having built a really solid business already, I'm guessing that makes it a lot easier to, you know, be able to access that funding. And
theory, yeah.
In theory, yeah.
I haven't done it
I mean, I'm sure it'll still be a difficult task, but I guess having built that strong, I wouldn't say foundation, because that seems like, you know, very early stages, but, you know, having built that strong business already, you should in theory find it a lot easier to complete on those expansion plans that you have. On that, so how many employees do you have at Blackwater currently?
We're 13, and we've just taken on our 14th person.
14
and yeah, so it's 14 as of now, and I'd say another 2 or 3 next year if we stay the size we are. And if we supersize, then no idea.
How do you get the best out of those people that obviously work for your business?
You just try to give them space to grow, to train them. We train people. We encourage people. We get people in and give them the skills that they need to do the job they want to do. I mean, that's it really. Just give people room and space, and it helps if they like what we do in the first place. So it's worked so far. Yeah, absolutely.
You've given us some great insight and advice to really take, and Joe and I can obviously implement what you said into our own business ventures. So
you're doing it already, guys. I mean, you know, you're putting your balls on the line doing a podcast. I mean, there's a great self-belief in going, you know what, let's do this, and this is how we're going to do it. And you do the first one, and, you know, no one really watches, and then the numbers start, you know, climbing. And it's the self-belief just to keep going. And that's really, really important, is to go, you know what, in a way, we're doing this for ourselves. We're making the kind of podcast I would imagine you guys would want to listen to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So that's it. So you've got your vision, you've got your technology in place now, and you're doing it. And you'll just keep going, and then you'll just see what happens. And that's part of the journey.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I know myself that I'm far from the most articulate person, and I'm sure Joe will agree with that. But yeah, we're just putting ourselves out there and trying to make something happen out of this.
That's all you can do, guys. That is all any of us can do.
100%. But yeah, no, thank you, Peter, obviously, for hopping on here today. We've loved it, absolutely loved it. I'm sure the viewers will love it. Is there anything that you'd like to say before we wrap this up?
No, just as I say, follow your heart, guys. You know, just anyone out there, if you really believe it deep down in here, just go for it. And even if it doesn't work out, you know what? You'll have done it, and you won't be on your deathbed going, you know what? I should have set up that lollipop factory.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's about having no regrets, I guess, isn't it?
Something like that,
yeah. 100%. Well, we wish you, you know, all the success for the future with Blackwater Distillery and all the plans that you have and vision that you have for the company. And, you know, it'd be great to try one of your whiskey brands in the future and let you know how it is.
Of course, you'll love that, Tom.
Well, hopefully, all going well, it'll be back in the UK towards the end of this year. And,
that would be great. But best of luck, Peter, and once again, thank you for coming on the podcast.